When working with Perl, you may want to work with hashes. All right, now this isn't like something you have with your eggs and breakfast in the morning here. You may know hash by other names. You may know something as a map, or in other languages, sometimes we call it a dictionary. What this is this is a one-to-one collection of scalars. So we take a string as a key, and we take another scalar as the value. And we typically use strings as our keys whenever we create hashes. Indexing then is by that name, by that key, rather than by a subscript like we've done with arrays. So every two components, remember you've always got the key and the value. Key is a string. Be a good Perler and use a string for a key. You can try to use a numeric key, but I guarantee you'll get some strange results depending on your version of Perl. So rather than using that little @ sign like we've done for arrays, we're going to use a % sign to indicate a hash. And rather than using brackets like we've done with arrays to get the index value there, we're going to use these little curly braces when we index by name into our hash. So the syntax looks a little bit different, but the general technique is very similar to what we do with an array. All right, so if you wanted to add a new key-value pair, you could just use some unique key in a scalar context. So it would look something like this. Let's say we're going to keep an array, a hash of phone directory. So it would be %phone directory, that is our hash. But we're going to add Jenny. All right, and everybody knows Jenny's number. So we're going to add Jenny, okay, to the phone directory. So to add Jenny's entry, we simply do this. We say, all right, here's my phone directory. Notice the $sign in front of here. This is a scalar. See, so we're saying that the key is Jenny. The value is 8675309. All right. Now, when I put these two together, I end up with that entry stored in my hash. All right, we'll see the whole hash in just a bit. If you want to change the value of a key, because each key is only going to have one value attached to it, well, then you can do something kind of like this. Jenny changed her number. This is actually the story of my life. I think anytime I asked for a number, that was usually what happened. She seemed to have changed it the next day. All right, so the phone directory for Jenny now is for 555-1234. Or maybe we should do like the old movies. It's Klondike 51234. All right, that's where it heads. She's no longer at 8675309. All right, so multiple keys, though, could have values that look to be the same. In other words, Jenny is at 555-1234. It looks like Jenny may have a boyfriend because it's 555-1234 for Fred as well. This could be an issue. All right, so I guess I'm not going to keep Jenny's number. All right, but those multiple keys there, that's fine. These are two separate entries in the hash. Just because they have the same value, that's not a problem. Now, if you want to get the value that's attached to a particular key, so I want to look up, Bill or Susan or Jenny in my phone directory, then I can do something like this. I can say, all right, well, the phone number that I want to work with right now is this particular, here's Shirley in the $sign phone directory. All right, so we'll pull it out that way. And notice, again, it's scalar context. We're saying, all right, $sign phone directory. I want one scalar value. And assign that to another scalar variable or do whatever I'm going to do with that. Now we can go through hashes. Now here's the good news. We can loop through a hash just like we loop through an array. We can loop through anything. Here's the bad news. There is no guaranteed order for that hash. So for example, all right, using a for each, we could go through and say, I would like to see everybody's name and phone number. The thing is that we're not guaranteed to get Bill's number before we get Jenny's number, which then comes before Susan's number. It's not automatically going to print them out, sort them out by key for us. And there are ways to ask to sort by keys or values, but that order is never, ever guaranteed. So you have a separate function to do this. So if, let's say, you wanted to sort out that hash, you can use the sort function right in front of it. That's literally the name there. And you can simply spit out and say sort by key, which is a separate function, or sort by values, and we'll see that. And now let's look at a demo of working with hashes and sorting by key or by value. So in this example, let's take a look at creating hashes and manipulating them. So I've got a few things set up. What I've got is I'm making sure I'm using at least 5.10 so that I have say available to me. I'd like to print a few things for you nice and simply. But in this case, I've set up a scalar variable. I've also set up something called strict. So it means I have to declare my scalar variables. This is a good idea if you're a Perl person here. You're making sure that you avoid typos there. And anytime you have a long script, it's probably a good idea to, the first time you see that variable, to use my and use strict and enforce that. So you're saying this is the declaration. This is the first time we've seen place. This is the first time we've seen where. We're being very particular. All right. Now, this part right here, you recognize that. That's a simple scalar. We're just assigning place, is going to hold the string Oregon. This is where we actually create our hash. And here is our hash. And it's kind of nifty because remember that we have to have keys and values, but we can cheat a little bit with this special symbol here that Perl folks call a fat comma. It doesn't look like a comma to me, but that operator in between there. You could use a comma if you wanted to, list them out this way, but then you have to do the strings and you got to write it out and see how it's written in my comment here. And you see that's just a lot of work to have to put the quotes around it and then a comma and then a space, and so it's key, value, and so on down the line, and that's just painful. Or what you could do is instead go through and say, all right, Gary, look at that, no quotes, and Houston. And this is actually a common style too. You'll see folks put them nice and lined up like this, so it's easy for me to read and see, oh, key value, I got it. All right, so this creates my where hash. Now one thing is that we've said is not guaranteed is this order. Right now my keys are Gary, Lucy, Ian, and Samantha, that order. Well, I probably won't see that order again. What I will see is Gary's always going to point to, I guess the way you could think of it, right, or map to Houston. All right, that's good. All right, then we have a sneaky little trick here. So I've taken this where array, this where hash, and I've decided I want to flip. I'm not actually, because remember, there's no order to the keys. So this is not reversing the order of keys. This is saying reversing the role of the pieces. Who's the key and who's the value? It's flipping them. So it's a sneaky little trick. If I want, now what happens is Houston becomes the key in who, and Gary becomes the value. All right, so we're just making it kind of a two-way hash here. We've got one going from person to place, other one going from place to person. Great. So who goes from place to person? We want to find out who lives in Houston versus we want to find out where Lucy lives. All right, see, so we can go either direction. It's a sneaky little idea. And just to show you what it's going to look like, this is not going to look very pretty, but we'll do a quick little print so you see what who and where hashes look like. Then at the bottom, we're going to pull out individual elements. Again, the nice thing about those strings as keys is I can use just a plain word there. I don't have to put the quotes around there, and Perl is perfectly tolerant of that when we're indexing here. It looks close to what we do with an array, but we use these special curly braces as opposed to the brackets like we use in the array, and we're indicating that here is my key, my string that you want to search for within the where hash. But since we want a single value, it needs to be in scalar context. There we go. So we're going to ask where Gary lives. Then a slightly different version of that print string, all in one string, so you can see that it interpolates correctly. We're going to ask where Ian lives. We're going to find out who lives in London. I want to know, don't you? And remember, way up here we set our place of Oregon. Well, let's find out using that place. This could be from user input. This could be from another file. Let's find out who lives in Oregon and put that out there. All right, so just a quick run. Step on through. And the first two ugly pieces were those saying the who and saying the where. And you see it's reading Ian, Houston, Gary. See, there's the who. We reversed the original, which was Gary, Houston, Samantha, Oregon, Lucy. And look closely here. Wait a second, this doesn't even line up. Gary and Houston, but Samantha wasn't defined until the end there, but we've got Samantha as the second one. If you try this, if you take my exact same script on your machine, you may not even get this exact same order of pairs that I got. That is up to Perl at runtime. For the run, it should stay the same, but from one run of the script to another, too many variables to take into account, too many things that might change. Perl decides where to put that in memory and what order to store that nice and efficiently. You can see overall, though, it's the same size hash, but it's just how it stores this. All right, then you see, so Gary lives in Houston. Yay, we found that. Let me pull that down so you can see that. All right, where Gary, where Ian. Ian lives in Reading. And then we did the opposite direction. We said, okay, fill in, tell me who lives in London. That's Lucy. And Samantha lives in Oregon. Yay, by using that place as our scalar little placeholder. All right, so we've seen ways to access and create those hashes. Let's look at one more thing. All right, if you want to sort for output, and you saw how ugly that output could be if we just said to say or print the hash directly, you usually end up having to loop through the hash however you want to output that information. So here again, I've got another hash. It's similar. I think I changed where people live. Oh, Lucy's in London now. I don't know where she was. Maybe she was in London before. Doesn't matter. But here's our new where hash, right? And we've got a new little function here for sort keys. Well, we're saying get the keys from this hash. That's the keys function. Then sort them. That then becomes the thing that we iterate through. So now we're going one by one through the keys. That key then becomes the default scalar. So the key was the name, blank lives in, and then we look up in that hash where they live. But now we should get, so it's GLIS, so it should be what, GILS? Let's see if that works. Okay, we'll try that, and then we'll look at the stuff after that real quick. GILS. Hey, look at that. Got all those. Those came out nice and in order. So we did it alphabetical by key. Nice and simple. All right. Then we've got some other checks that we can do here. All right. And this idea of seeing whether something exists. So Ian, we can find out whether he exists in there. But what if you ask for a string that isn't in the hash? Here's Bob. Who knows where Bob lives? I don't know. Do you know where Bob lives? But what's going to happen here is, well, Ian, he exists. There is a value attached to that key. Versus Bob, I don't see any Bob up here. So this will never run for us. All right, one last time for that. And sure enough, see, printed out, hey, Ian lives in Reading, or Reading, depending on where you're from, right? But the last one down there, Bob, who knows? He never even showed up. Bob, if you're out there, let us know where you live. All right, now, next up, all right, we've got a hash using for each. And again, now I cheated. Look at this. This is kind of sneaky. All right, so again, when we create a hash, it's key value pair. So here's key is Bill. There's my little phone directory again. Key is Bill. There's the number. There's Susan. There's her number. There's Jenny. And there's her number. All right, so a simple, sneaky way to go through and put this hash together is I just used that quoted word. I said, yep, each of those. Now, the only problem is if, of course, I had somebody who had a space in their name or something, that might be a little bit more difficult. But otherwise, this comes in handy as a quick delimiter to do this, and I build my hash, my phone directory. So key is the name, value is the phone number. All right, now, in this case, let's kind of work our way outwards here. So we're taking the keys, and I left some parentheses in, which you may not see in other people's demonstrations here or other people's scripts. I left these parentheses in to be very clear. There is a keys function that is reading the keys from this hash. I'm not sorting them. I'm not doing anything else with them, but I'm just reading those keys. That key, one at a time, is going to be assigned. See, there's that for each. So for each key, I'm going to assign that to person. And then I just want to print out that person and what else? The phone directory. The phone number for that person. Now you could, if you wanted to, you could put a sort right in front of that. All right. And so let's explore that one first, and then we'll ignore some of the other output for a moment. And if you can see, it said Bill, Jenny, Susan. And I'm going to ignore the rest of these for a moment. I'll come back to them in a moment. You notice the commas there. It's a different output. So this is the only output we're concerned with at that point. And you can see it just spit them out. So this is a simple way to print them out however you want. Loop through them. You could put them in order if you wanted to. We even got, it just coincidentally became in order of, the key, Bill, BJS, that had nothing to do with anything I did. That was just sheer luck. Even though Jenny was the last one I had defined before. Perl decided that's the order I'm going to store them in. Had nothing to do with even trying to sort it out. Last bit here, though, while. So there's another way to do it, and there's a different function, different operator. Essentially what we're doing is we're breaking our key value hash into pairs of those key values, a couple. It's like, you know, at the dance, watching the couple walk in during their entrance there, they're arm in arm. So what happens is I take this hash and I say for each pair is really what this is. Notice that each is a little bit different here. It's put in a different spot. This is a different keyword. I'm saying get the couples, get the pairs. So in this case, key and value. And we've seen that we can assign directly to a list. Well, see, that's really what it is. It's a list of two scalars, key, value. So I'm assigning each one to each individual step here. And this is even really sneaky. While there are pairs to get, so while the couples are entering the dance, then go and say what they are. This is really sneaky. See, I'm just one at a time, grabbing each one. And what happens? What's going to happen eventually? Well, there's no more couples to talk to, so that while will stop, and we're out of the loop. And this is a very simple, sneaky way. I mean, I guess if you really wanted to, you could try to sort somehow on this too. But if that's not, you know, vital to us, you know, just to spit it out. This is a great way for output with a for each or with a while and the separate each function. One more time, so you can see on the end. Run it through, and you can see it just in default order. Yeah, see, look at this time. Now we got Jenny, Susan, Bill. I've been working, and so things have changed, and so I decided to put it in a different order. Like I said, you're not guaranteed from run to run what order that hash will be. There's Jenny, Susan, Bill. I did, though, for the run, they were consistent. Whether I used the for each or I used the while, I got Jenny, Susan, Bill, Jenny, Susan, Bill. Good to go. So now you've seen how to create hashes, how to output from a hash. You know how to sort by keys if you needed to. You can do a similar step where we have keys. There is a values function as well, probably rarely used, but just in case you could. You've seen how to flip over a hash if you need to, and you are